Uh, so the title of my presentation is The Ocean View Odyssey of the Samuel and Rosina Naumann Family. Uh, Turn to page. Okay, introducing my great-grandfather, Samuel Naumann. He was born in 1835 in Germany, and in 1835, Andrew Jackson was President of the United States, and also born that year was Andrew Carnegie and Mark Twain. So it gives you a little idea of the, the years. Samuel married at a very young age of 16, and in 1851. He had 3 children from this marriage, and uh, that wife died, and then he remarried at age 39 to my great-grandmother, uh, Rosina, and she was 36, and he was 39. So Rosina was born in 1848 in Germany and died in 1927 in Oxnard. Rosina was previously married with a son born in 1870. 6 children were born to Samuel and Rosina from 1875 to 1884. Samuel's occupation in Germany was that of a stonemason, and he owned a home in the town of Oschersleben, Germany. In 1886, Samuel at age 51 and Rosina age 38 with 7 children, uh, the 6 of their children and Rosina's son immigrated from Germany to America. Rosina's son came with the family, and Samuel's other 3 children, who at the time were 22, they were 28, 23, and 18 years of age in 1886, so they stayed in Germany. And I really believe that this separation of his first family from the father really must have bothered Samuel for his whole life, because he committed suicide in 1905, and at the time the newspaper mentioned that he was suffering from melancholy, or today we call it depression. But I think he really missed, he felt something that he might have felt like he abandoned the first 3 children, and because he wanted his other children to stay in touch with them, and I don't know if they ever did. Turn the page. Okay, no, back. There you go. Okay, this is a map of Germany, and the red dot is where Oschersleben is. It's about 100 and some miles south and west of Berlin. It's a very old city. It traces its beginnings back to the 700s. It was a walled city, and you can go to the next slide. Okay, and the colored line is the boundary of the walls, and there's numerous gates of the wall, and some of them are still there. Sue and I visited Oschersleben a year ago, and it's really an impressive little town. It's just nice and clean and beautiful and well kept, and they suffered a lot of damage in World War II, and the church is in the yellow there towards the bottom part of the boundaries. And that was the church. It was called the Reformed Church, and was started built in the 1500s, and coincides with the Reformation that Martin Luther started with breaking away from the Catholic Church. And my Samuel and Rosina were married there, and my grandfather, who was born in 1884, was christened there. And Samuel owned a home at the bottom of the map. And now before I forget it, I got to get out my pointer. All right. Okay, this is Westdorfer Street. Here's the church I was talking about. Here's one of the gates, the most impressive gates of the whole thing. I have some nice pictures of that one coming up. But we have an address book that says that Samuel owned a home here on this street, Westdorfer Street, number 25. Turn the page. Okay, this is a painting that was done in the 1860s, and it shows the walls of the town, and these people are on a hill outside the walls. Of course, there's the church, and here's the gates over here. Westdorfer Street was outside the walls and would have been right out in this area someplace. So even though this painting was done in 1860, I don't know what era. This might have been the 1700s. I don't know. Okay, next page. Okay, this is the church, the Reformed church, and just a massive building. You just wonder, how did they build those things in the 1500s? Next page. This is the church from the residential area of the town. The front doors. Sue and I are both kicking ourselves. We walked around the church and did everything, looked at it, took pictures, but we didn't even try the front door. We figured, don't touch this, don't touch this. So I have a cousin that also visited Oschersleben about 7-8 years before we did, and when I talked to him, he says, "Oh, well, we just walked right in." So missed it. Here's another view of the church and the steeple. Really, the dominant structure in the town. We were on our way to Westdorfer Street when we took this picture. Okay, we found the address, and I really doubt if this is the home that they had, but it's the location. Because we rang the doorbell, but of course the guy spoke German and we spoke English, so we didn't get along very much into the conversation. In fact, he kind of hung up on me. All right, this is the street, that 25 Westdorfer Street is, Westdorfer is this building here. And the cobblestone streets are, they're pretty smooth actually for cars, you know, and they last forever, and no potholes that we could see. And like I said earlier, I think Samuel was a stonemason by trade, so you just kind of wonder if he might have worked on that street. Okay, this is in the shopping district of Oschersleben. Lots of nice, neat, entertaining shops to shop through, and places to eat and buy souvenirs and get around. Those cobblestones are pretty rough on senior citizen type scooters, though. Okay, this is a postcard, a family postcard that was dated 1908, and this is the Johannes Gate that I showed earlier on the map, and so I wanted to locate this and see what I could see, and here it is today. I tried to, some of the buildings, of course, are gone. Okay, they came from Germany aboard a ship from North German Lloyd Steamship Company, and they traveled on this ship that was named EMS, E-M-S, and when I first heard that name, I just, what is EMS? And I found out that they named their ships after rivers, and Ems is a river in Germany. And this is a reproduction of a pretty old poster, and the ship, it was just like the one here. This is like the one that the family traveled on, and it very fine print down in this corner here. It mentions the M's and that it was under construction. It was launched in 1884, and the family traveled on it in 1886. This is an artist drawing of the ship. They were called the express steamers of that line, and they had they were the fastest ships that the German company had at that time. They could cross the Atlantic to New York in 8 or 9 days, and they had the contract for carrying the mail back and forth from Germany to America. Yeah, this is a diary. A few years ago, I belong to an organization called the German Texas Heritage Society, and it's our family. They landed in New York, but then they traveled to South Texas and lived there for 6 years before they moved to California. And this society printed this diary of a German immigrant who traveled aboard the steamship Ems in 1885, which was only 14 months prior to when the Naumann family traveled. And I've reprinted it here, and I want to read it to you because his voyage could have been very similar to the voyage of the family. And this German immigrant was from a town that was located 50 miles from Oschersleben, and his destination was a town in Texas 125 miles north of where the Naumann family lived. Okay, the weather was nice with a mild west wind. This was departure on June 4th, 1885. We boarded the steamship, which was about 500 feet long and who knows how wide. There were about 1,200 persons with the captain, officers, and the servants of the ship. I am until now, thank God, well and healthy. My handheld traveling case is missing, and I don't know where it can be found. The Lord help me further. Before noon, the English coast was in sight, and on the same afternoon, the coast of France could be seen. It goes fast on both sides. On the English coast in Southampton, we took on more passengers. Overnight, we were in the Atlantic Ocean. The passengers enjoyed music on the ship. Friday, June 5th. In the night, steamy weather appeared, and it stayed that way all day long. I got seasick and had to vomit. I believe that most of the passengers with me were sick from the hefty waves of the ship. Saturday, June 6th. The weather was stormy and the afternoon was mixed with rain. Today there was more south wind, so the steamship could go as fast as a bullet. Today I couldn't eat anything yet, but yet it is somewhat better. The ship still swung around a lot. We found out that on the Atlantic Ocean, a favorable wind will make the trip go faster. Sunday, June 7th. Today there was unfavorable west wind. The ship goes on continuously. I find myself very unwell, am weak and have no appetite and lie mostly in bed. The Lord help. Wow, what happened? Yeah, well. Monday, June 8th. Today I had to vomit again because of the ship's tossing around. The steering wheel was hard to handle because of the west wind. I am very ill, cannot keep anything down but drink a little water, wine, or coffee. Tuesday, June 9th. Today there was a strong west wind again. The ship is being tossed around something terrible. I have to stay in bed most of the time. I am very weak since I can't keep anything down. Many are in the same way. I sound like the cruise from hell or something. This morning there was a strong thrust which sent the waves over the ship and into the lower deck steerage, and the steps overturned. A sailor had the misfortune that he went overboard from his guard post on the mast. He fell under and unfortunately was considerably worn out. About 2/3 of the trip is now past. The Lord help us further with his grace that everything will go with good luck. Wednesday, June 10th. Today, west wind again. The ship still rocked heftily, especially in the afternoon. Today we were free of rain, and at noon it became clear and still. I am still very weak. The stomach still doesn't take anything in. I still don't have a good appetite as yet. Today it is a full week that we went to sea together. A person sees only the heavens and the stormy ocean, which through its gray waves our steamboat is in house-high, unsteady waves, in a deviating course whereby often it sent the waves over our ship. Thursday, June 11th. Tonight the weather is calmer as it was all day, although it is still west wind against our ship, although somewhat calmer and no stormy wind anymore. The trip is going steady and better. Still, we will get to New York on Saturday, God's will. I find myself, thank God, a little healthier and then took a little nourishment, but I am still very faint and weak. Friday, June 12th. Today there is a wonderful and peaceful sea and early, somewhat, a good sailing wind. The afternoon was more west wind, but in spite of everything, it is now a good trip. Today I have a good appetite again and can eat good, thank God, but I am still dizzy in my head and I'm still weak. Yesterday about sundown, we had an exciting sight next to the ship, namely a school of fish, and some were 100 feet long. Now I think he meant the schools were 100 feet long. They jumped out of the water, one after the other, again and again, and as often as the waves came, some minutes on this side of the ship and then on the other side. It happened at different times. It was an unforgettable experience. Everyone was on deck. The people said that they were swordfish. I can't say what they were since I had never seen any. There are also flying fish. If it actually was that kind, I don't know either. There are so many wonders in the sea. Today I noticed a larger sea fish and more small fish like herring that were already looking black on the green ocean water. In about 400 sea miles we will be in New York. Saturday, June 13th. Today, early at 8 o'clock, ship's time, just about, a call went out that land was in sight. So everyone rushed on deck. We sat right next to the captain, but soon afterwards it got foggy and it is night, and our steamship blew its horn as a warning since it is dangerous for sea travel in fog. A person could not see in front of him, and we must be near New York. God help us that everything goes well. We will certainly be late getting there and probably have to stay on the ship until Monday. Because of the fog, we had to stay until the wind blew the fog away and we could sail to New York, and in the afternoon we landed in the harbor. Sunday, June 14th. We were unloaded from the steamship Ems and everyone and their baggage in the large ship's gate of the North German Lloyd's in New York. It is said that the Ems is 500 feet long. From the main part of the big city of New York, I saw a wonderful sight from the ship's harbor. The weather is very nice and still. We were put on a small steamship and are going to Castle Garden. We got to Castle Garden and the luggage was weighed, and at last we were sent to the German immigrant house in Castle Garden, where we were greeted in a friendly way. Okay, this is Castle Garden was the immigration depot point for all immigrants. Before Ellis Island was built, um, it was originally a fort built to defend the harbor during the War of 1812. And you can see here's the fortress walls. They added roofs and later on, but it was a fort that was built for defense, and it never fired a shot. So they turned it to other uses after the War of 1812, and the Army vacated the fort in 1821, and in 1855, the fort became the immigration depot for over 8 million people over the next 34 years. Ellis Island became the immigration depot in 1892. The Statue of Liberty was nearing completion. This is, now I'm talking about when our family landed in August 17th, 1886. The Statue of Liberty was dedicated by President Cleveland on October 28th of 1886. The skyline of Manhattan at that time reached an astounding height of 11 to 12 stories. Today, the Freedom Tower stands 104 stories. The Brooklyn Bridge was 3 years old. The legendary span completed in 1883 was the work of an 1831 German immigrant named John Roebling and his Civil War engineer son, Washington Roebling. During the summer of 1886, Buffalo Bill Cody's Wild West show had an extended run at the Aristina Resort on Staten Island, New York. The New York Times newspaper carried ads with information on ferry schedules, fees, and cost of admission to the show. The ferry cost 10 cents, and show admission was 50 cents and for adults and 25 cents for children. Steal. Okay, our family traveled, we don't know how, but I kind of suspect they traveled by train from New York to South Texas and to the big town of Victoria, Texas, which is about 30 or 40 miles from the coast, the Gulf coast of Texas. And they lived in a little town over here called Germantown, Texas, and it was there was a lot of German immigration beginning in about 1840 from Germany to Texas, because Texas was the state that needed people to come and populate it after the Alamo was settled, and so there was a lot of German immigration to Texas, and at one time there was more people of German background living in Texas than there were of any other nationality, including Mexicans, which were real close to Mexico, but they weren't there yet. Okay, this is a copy of Samuel Naumann's intent to become a citizen, which he filed in June of 1891, and it just states who he was, where he came from, at what age, and when he landed in New York, and who he was subject of the Emperor of Germany, and that here's my great-grandfather's signature, Samuel Naumann, 1891. It was really, I've been to South Texas 2 times, and when I got this document, I went to the courthouse in Victoria, because that's where he got his citizenship papers in 1893, and it's just it's kind of like old town, old school bureaucracy. you just ask the ladies if they have any documents pertaining to so-and-so, and they just go back in the vault and rummage around for a little while and come up with this. I said, cool. I said, can I have this? No, but you can make a copy. We'll make a copy for you. So. Okay. Okay, this is the Samuel and Rosina Naumann immigration family of 9. Here's, of course, this is Samuel. This is Rosina. This is Rosina's son, who was born in 1870. So he would have been about, I think this picture, it was taken around 1890, because the baby, the baby was born in Texas. She was born in 1888. And so I just figure that this baby is about 2 years old. So this is the oldest. This is Herman. He was born in 1875, and in 1875, Mark Twain, who was born in 1835, wrote Tom Sawyer. And this is Louise, the second born. She was born 1876, and that's the year of the Custer's last stand at the Little Bighorn. And this is my grandfather. He was the youngest that came up on the ship. He was born in 1884. His name was Gus. This is Paul. This is Otto. This is Emma, and this is Emma, and this is Martha. I knew 1, 2, 3 of those people, 4 of them. Emma was my Sunday school teacher at St. John's Lutheran in about 1952 or so. Yeah. Okay. So they had 104 acres that they were purchasing in Texas, and they were there for 6 years until Samuel got his citizenship document. And so then they just got on it. He decided to move the family from Texas to Chino, California, right here. And the reason he chose Chino was because the Oxnard brothers had an operating sugar factory that opened in 1890. And through research that I've done lately, there was quite a bit of sugar. The sugar beet refining actually started in Europe, and in the 1880s, Germany was the leading producer of refined sugar from sugar beets. So I really think that Samuel probably had some knowledge that growing sugar beets was something that he could be a little familiar with. So they went to Chino, and the story of Chino is a guy by the name of Richard Gerd started the town, and he was a mining engineer, and he was involved in discovery and producing mines in Tombstone, Arizona, and he made of course he made a ton of money, and so he sold out his share in the late 1880s, and he came over to California, and he bought the Rancho Santa Ana del Chino land grant, and with other purchases he owned a total of 47,000 acres. And the blue line is the outline of his ranch. So he felt that sugar beets was a crop that would be something that would improve his ranch. So he conducted trials for 4 years and determined that, yeah, they'll grow here. And then he convinced the Oxnard brothers, who were major players in the sugar industry of that time, and they built a factory. And so Gerd advertised in newspapers around the United States and advertised that the land was for sale or rent, and that they had a sugar factory and they needed farmers to come and grow some sugar beets for the factory. Next page. Okay, this is the way, nope, go back. Oh, no. Back. Hello.
Ernie, are you asleep back there?
There. Stop. Okay, this is a postcard of a sugar beet field in Chino, and during the growing season, and of course the beets are down below ground and the tops are green, and so they have to, in the fall, they cut the tops and dig the beets out of the ground. And in the 1890s, this was a very hard, tough job. It was all hand labor. Next page. Next page. There we go. Oh, no. Okay, this is a postcard of the Chino sugar factory. These are sugar beets being fed into the factory. They have to slice them and smash them and cook them somehow and get sugar out of them. Next page. Okay, this is a picture that was written with German lettering. So we had this picture for years, and we didn't know what it was or what it said or anything, but it just, I had it translated. Wake up, Larry.
Where are we, Frank?
Okay, this is a picture of the family in Chino, and after I had it translated, I found out that this says this was our place in Chino, and these are names, and this says Mama, Papa, and Martha, and this is Herman, the oldest. This is my grandfather here, the youngest, except for Martha. And these two guys with the horses it says workers. You know, I looked at this picture, and I always saw these guys with mustaches, and they looked like Italians to me. So I figured this must be some friends they had, but we found out it was our family.
Where's Herman the German?
Okay. Well, you missed it. He's coming up. Okay. A few months ago, I was digging around at the Hueneme Museum with Larry, and he gave me this ledger book to look through, and we found Samuel Naumann's name in this book, and it was dated May of 1898, and so he had a small loan here at the original Tom Bard Bank of Hueneme, which was built out of stone.
You can say Hueneme Bank.
Hueneme Bank? Oh, okay. But it doesn't say Hueneme Bank. It just says bank. But it is, I know. Yeah.
He's from Oxford.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a yellow jacket. Okay, this is the sugar factory in Oxnard. Yeah, this was quite a building. It was at east of Oxnard Boulevard and north of Woolley Road, and it extended about to where the railroad tracks are now. I was able to, it closed I think in 1959, and the last year of operation, our church men's club went on a nighttime tour, and so I got to go along with my dad and a couple of cousins, and so we went through there, and I just remembered it smelled terrible, and but it was very interesting. Next page, yeah. So this is from the other side, and this shows the smoke, and they had a real loud steam whistle, and I remember you could hear that out at our place, which was the Pleasant Valley and Edding Road out by the Masonic Cemetery, and we could hear that whistle at noontime, and when they started the day at I think 7 o'clock, and 4:30 whistle. Okay, for Larry, this is Herman the German, right there. And this is workers, Asian workers, and they're probably Takasugi, now Takasugi. His father was a labor contractor, and I'm sure that that's probably where these guys came from. And so they were loading the beets into this wagon, and then they take the wagon to a beet dump. Next page. Next page. Let's go one more. Yeah. Oh no. Let's go another one. No. Let's go another one. There. This is a beet dump, and these are black and white pictures that I had a friend colorize for me. Larry, I'm losing you. And so the wagons came up this incline, and then they had a hoist here that tipped either the whole wagon, or they had nets in the bottom of the wagon that they dumped the beets into a rail car, and then the line. This beet dump was called the Naumann dump, and it was on Edding Road, about a half a mile east of Naumann Road. And so they would fill up a few cars, and then the engine would come out from town and with empties, and they'd switch them and take these beets into town to be processed. And this was a pretty dangerous situation, because the horses could get spooked, and my dad said that he saw that there was quite some very bad accidents. My dad was born in 1911, so he probably saw these things. So let's go back now. Keep going back. There. Yeah, okay. Forward one. Okay, now this is the Naumann Brothers thrashing crew in 1909, and this was thrashing dry lima beans, which they're doing right now out on the Oxnard Plain. And so it took a lot of men to do the work, and they hauled go to the next one, please. Next, yeah. Here they loaded the dry beans into wagons. They brought them to the thresher. They ran them through the thresher. The straw came out here, and they went out and dumped it out in the field. And the beans came out one side of the machine, and they were sacked up in these bags, and these were like 100-pound bags. Go back one, please. Okay, this is the power plant for this thrasher, and it's huge flywheel here. The pulley for the belt is over on this side, and believe it or not, this is only a 10 horsepower Fairbanks and Morse single-cylinder engine. And this is my uncle here. He was Uncle Paul. He was in charge of the engine in the machine, and up on top is Herman the German. He's in charge of the separator. My grandfather was kind of in charge of hiring the men from town, and he just was kind of a roustabout, run-around guy because he had a car, and so he could go to town and if they needed something. But they didn't go to run to town to buy just anything. They usually made it somehow on their own shop. Okay. Next slide. Yeah, so this is another colorized picture of bean thrashing that we've already seen. This is the cookhouse here. The men stayed in the field, and they slept out here somehow, and on this pile of bean straw, I think, and this is where they got their meals. Next slide. This is the Naumann brothers in about 1910 in Oxnard. Okay, this is Rosina's son, who was born in 1870, and now he's about the shortest. He's a short guy, and my grandfather is the only one that's got any height to him over here. And so this is my grandfather, Gus. This is Herman the German. This is Richard Moker, Rosina's son. This is Otto Naumann and Paul Naumann. They were twins. Not identical, but they were twins, and people say they were just as different as peas in a pod, though. This guy was a real boisterous, roundabout party boy, and this guy was real quiet and reserved and studious and read books and liked ran a machine shop in town later on. Next. Yeah, we've seen this one. This is the Naumann beat them. Okay, this is the home that they lived at. They built on the Naumann Ranch, and they bought property in 1901, about 160-acre property that's still in the family ownership and farmed by my cousins. Here's Herman the German again. This is Paul. This is Richard Moker. This is Rosina. I think maybe this might be my grandfather. But this house is still there, and it was built, like I said, I think about 1904, somewhere along there. Next slide. Okay, this is a car. This is on 5th Street in Oxnard, in front of the railroad depot, and the sugar factory grounds are over on this side. And this car is a 19. Let me. It's a 1908. It's called Tourist, and I found some literature on it, and if you bought a car in those days, it was a big deal, and it was in the newspaper. It says here, C.B. Smith of Los Angeles, agent and demonstrator for the Tourist automobiles, has sold a 40-horsepower machine to Mrs. Samuel Naumann. Yeah, okay, my great-grandfather had died. He died in 1905. So she was controlling the purse strings, and the boys were working for her and working the ranch, and the car cost $2,500, and it looks like it's brand new there to me, and Crazy Otto is driving, and this is Martha. The baby was born in Texas in 1888. That's Louise, and that's Emma, and that's Rosina. Next slide. Okay. Go back.
Ernie, you been drinking?
Okay. Wait a minute. Okay. This is my grandfather again, and this is his first car. It's he bought that also in 1908, and that was in the newspaper, and it says, Gus Naumann has purchased a new automobile from R.B. Lipscomb, Santa Paula representative for the Rio. Rio is the name of the car, and it was named Rio because it was built by Ransom E. Oldsmobile. Okay, this is my grandfather and my grandmother before they were married, and this is on B Street and 3rd Street over here. And this is where the Oxnard City Hall is now. This street was closed off. They built a school here that burned down, I think, in 1923, and then they built another school, and sometime in the 1950s, it turned into be the City Hall, and then they tore it down and built a 3-story building that's there now. So this was about 1910, or maybe 1909, because they were married in 1910. So you see these palm trees, they're still there, but they're about this high up here, about maybe 100 feet tall. Okay, now this is Herman the German in his Buick car. This is out on the old Caneo grade, and here's the road went around like this and climbed up here, and this rock is still. This is if you go to Oak Grove Park in Camarillo, you go to the very east end of the park. This rock is still there. Yeah, right. All the lettering is gone, and the El Camino Real bell is gone. It's just amazing. Okay, this is Richard Mocher and his son and a friend. They drove up to the Wawona, the big trees in the south end of Yosemite. This tree fell over, I think, many years ago, but it was quite a thing. You can see people were lined up to get their picture taken. This is a Chevrolet car. It's kind of fuzzy right there, but that's the bow tie insignia of Chevy. Okay, so now we've reached the end of the road, the Naumann Road, and the Ocean View Odyssey of Samuel and Rosina Naumann family. Thank you very much.